You're live.
Carmen, thank you so much for having me participate in this wonderful workshop series of workshops today. We're on slide 1, so unemployment benefits and COVID-19, what you need to know. My name is Michelle Clemon, and I'm going to say off top, like I'm probably like the auntie of the group of presenters. My tech skills are not high. I'm so appreciative for Carmen. I know you said earlier your millennial card might get snatched. But I'm certainly my tech card will as a Gen Xer. But again, thank you for this opportunity to present. I want to tell you all a little bit about myself. So Carmen, if you could go to the next slide, please, ma'am. Awesome. So again, I'm Michelle Clemon. I'm an employment and labor attorney. I've been in the game for 20 years. I'm a former HR executive with McWayne Incorporated, for those of you who live in Birmingham. I'm a certified athlete development specialist, which doesn't seem to have anything to do with the law or HR, but it's a passion of mine. Just on the hobby front, I love to travel, I love sports, and I love a bourbon. But enough about me. That's not why you all are here. Let's get into a bit about unemployment benefits. Let's go to the next slide, please, Carmen. And shout out to Carmen for running my PowerPoint for me. Again, another indication of my technological deficiencies. What I want to do is talk a little bit first about just workers' comp, or rather unemployment benefits generally, before getting into a deeper dive of the intersection of it with COVID-19. Unemployment benefits were part of the Social Security Act of 1935. So we're talking about something that's been in place for like 85 years here. It's unusual in that it's a federal and state partnership. It is mandated by federal law, but it's by states. And what you'll hear me say throughout the following 35 minutes or so is the common refrain that you'll need to check with your local state's Department of Labor agency to know what their unemployment benefits program looks like, because it's literally a state-to-state determination. Workers' comp, you're going to hear me say workers' comp. If you hear me say workers' comp, no, I mean unemployment benefits. Unemployment benefits are almost exclusively funded by employer taxes. There are only 3 states in the country that actually collect taxes from employees to pay for unemployment benefits. Most people who have jobs in this country, their employers are required to pay into the unemployment benefit system. There is, as an aside, a separate program for railroad workers, but that's not relevant for our conversation today. And it's a low threshold for an employer to be required to pay into the system. During the current or preceding calendar year, they must have employed 1 or more individuals in at least each of at least 20 of the last 20 calendar weeks. So that's not a high threshold. Or they paid wages of $1,500 or more during any calendar quarter of either the current or preceding year. So very low threshold. Most employers, almost all employers, have to pay into the unemployment insurance system. So let's talk a little bit about what unemployment benefits provide. And I'm going to break each one of these clauses down in here because each one has significance to the meaning. Temporary partial wage replacement for unemployment workers that have been attached to the labor force while they seek their next job. So temporary. So unemployment benefits only apply to a certain amount of time in any given calendar year. And that is typically up to 26 months, depending on the state. I'll be saying that a lot again, depending on the state. You'll want to check your state's Department of Labor to confirm. But at a maximum, unemployment benefits can be given over a period of 26 weeks within a given year. So that's the temporary part. It's a partial wage replacement. It's not designed to make you whole with regard to the wage you may have lost. And again, what that partial looks like is yet again determined by your local state's Department of Labor. For 3, unemployed workers that have been attached to the labor force. So there are a couple of things to break down there. Unemployed workers, that means that someone that is employed due to no fault of their own. So if you were fired from your job for cause, then you are not eligible for unemployment benefits. However, if you were subject to a layoff or a furlough for some reason, you are likely eligible for such benefits. And you have to have been attached to the labor force. And what that specifically means is that you were recently employed. Then it can't be a situation where you were employed 5 years ago and are going to try to and want to collect unemployment benefits now. Like, you have to have had a recent attachment to the labor force, having contributed to the labor force. And the 4th thing is while you seek your next job. So if you are an unemployed worker that you're unemployed due to no fault of your own, and that you were attached to the labor force, but if you aren't actively seeking new employment and can't demonstrate that good faith effort, you won't be deemed eligible for unemployment benefits. So it's important to know that it's not just that you don't have a job. You have to be showing that you're ready, willing, and able, and actively seeking employment. So that, in a nutshell, is what unemployment benefits provide. Carmen, we can go to the next screen. So the takeaway, the bottom line of all this is that, again, the common refrain, every state has its own requirements when it comes to unemployment benefits. They are determined by some calculation as determined by your state's Department of Labor of the wages earned for a period of time prior to your separation from your job. Number 3, again, your separation from the job has to have not been your fault. So you cannot have been fired for cause to be eligible for unemployment benefits. So if we could go to the next slide, I'd appreciate it, ma'am. So the next question becomes, how do you apply? You file with the state in which you work, the unemployment insurance program in the state in which you work. Depending on the state, they will take those claims being filed by person, by phone, or online. And you should contact your state's unemployment office as soon as you become unemployed. Generally, you should file your claim within the state where you filed, as I've said. If you worked in a state other than one in which you now live, or if you lived in multiple states, the state unemployment insurance agency where you now live can provide information about how to file your claim with other states. And when you file your claim, you will be asked for certain information, such as addresses and dates of employment with your former employer. Make sure that your claim is not delayed by giving complete and accurate information. And in typical times, and I know we're in highly atypical times, in typical times, it takes 2 to 3 weeks after you file your claim to receive your first benefit check. Next slide, please, Carmen. So then the question becomes, let's say you go through this process, you were separated from your job, no fault of your own, you're actively seeking employment, you file for unemployment benefits, you're doing the things you need to do, and then you get a notice from your State Department of Labor local unemployment office saying you've been denied your claim and you're not going to be given unemployment benefits. Well, the thing that you can do and likely should do is appeal that. You should check your state, again, I feel like a broken record. You should check your state's Department of Labor guidelines on what to do if denied. And if you are denied and contest that, then it results in a hearing involving you as well as a representative, usually from the HR department, from your former employer. So if you're in a situation in which you apply for unemployment benefits and get a denial letter and you decide to appeal, there's several things I want to impress upon you. First of all, it's of highest importance that if a hearing is set, that you're there. the hearing panel won't likely look favorably upon them going through the trouble of setting a hearing to hear your case about why you're due these benefits and you're not there. I mean, frankly, my experience is maybe the only excuse you might have that might be well received is that you were at a job interview that couldn't get moved, which would be evidence of your trying to get actively trying to get another job. But other than that, or some type of serious medical condition, make your best effort to attend any unemployment benefits appellate hearing that you may be given. Also consider, depending on how complex your situation is, how complex your separation laws, whether they're dispute about an appellate, if there's appeal hearing, there probably is a dispute of facts. You may want to hire an attorney. You don't have to, but you may want to do it depending on how complex it is. If you go to a hearing, particularly if you don't have counsel, you want to be sure to present any supporting documentation in support of your position that you're due these benefits. You're also going to want to present any witnesses. If you have any former coworkers be in a position to testify on your behalf at the hearing, you should, leverage all those witnesses that you might be able to bring to bear. As you're awaiting your appellate decision on your unemployment benefits, you should be continuing to certify each week with the unemployment office that you're actively seeking work. Like that, you should not let that fall by the wayside just because you were denied and you're on appeal. You should continue to actively certify, because if they do go back and reverse the decision to deny, you will not get paid for those weeks in which you might not have certified that you were actively pursuing another job. Carmen, ma'am, if we could go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I want to spend the remainder of my time that I'm going to spend presenting rather than answering questions. And if you all have any questions, please feel free to pose them and I will, if I don't answer them in real time, I'll be sure to answer them once I'm done with the actual slides. So I want to talk a little bit and do a deep dive into the unemployment benefits, changes that have occurred directly as a result of COVID-19. Next slide, I want to talk a bit about some of the trends and changes in numbers we've seen in the filing of unemployment benefits. There we go. So you'll see there that in the third week of March, 3.3 million Americans applied for unemployment benefits, according to the Post, and that more than 6.6 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits the week ending April 4th, according to the BBC. And there's a quote there that at the very bottom that goes into the changes in employment rates just since COVID hit over the last several months. So as you can see, the world has kind of been turned on its axis in a number of ways, not the least of which with regard to unemployment rates. And in recent weeks, the government has responded to this by enacting legislation to address the issue. If we could go to the next slide, please, Carmen. And I know that Maisha is going to give a dope presentation on the back end of mine about CARES, which is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. I want to touch a bit on those components of it that touch directly independent contractors, folks in the gig economy, and creatives. So the CARES Act, which was just passed by Congress and signed into law by President Trump just a few weeks ago, expands coverage of unemployment benefits, which typically did not apply to independent contractors. CARES expands the unemployment benefits statute so that it applies for the first time to independent contractors. For those who were prior to coronavirus eligible for unemployment benefits, but may have already exhausted their 26 weeks of leave, it adds up to 13 weeks of additional coverage for them. Increases the amount of available benefits. I'm going to get into more details to that just now. If we could go to the next slide. So there are two components of the CARES Act that I want to speak on briefly. The first is the pandemic emergency employment compensation component. And that this part speaks to those folks who would have been eligible for unemployment benefits before coronavirus. So this part does not explicitly speak to independent contractors. So this particular component gives states up to 13 more weeks of federally funded benefits to qualified individuals who have exhausted all rights to regular compensation under state or federal law with respect to a benefit year that ended on or after July 1 of last year. So these are the folks that I mentioned may have already exhausted their 26 weeks. This particular provision gives them another 13 weeks of eligibility for unemployment benefits. And again, they have to meet all the other prerequisites and definitions that I discussed earlier with regard to fired for separated for no cause of their own, actively seeking work, and were attached to the labor force. The other piece of the
Y'all, we're going to get the sound issue fixed in just one moment. Having just a little small technical difficulties. Enjoy these tunes while you wait. Oh. Okay, everyone. Let me turn the music on. Okay, Michelle.
I'm here.
All right, well, we back in business.
Folks can hear me? Thank you. So folks can hear and see me now. I am not in the event, so I cannot see what you might be chatting in the event. So awesome. Guys, thank you so much for your patience. Again, technological difficulties reared their ugly head. So I was starting to talk about the second part of the CARES provision that most applies to independent contractors, and that's the pandemic unemployment assistance piece. And let me go back and say this with regard to the pandemic unemployment compensation piece. I had covered that it extended for those who had already exhausted 26 weeks since July 1 of last year. It gives them 13 weeks of additional coverage, but also it adds an additional $600 in a weekly payment to eligible individuals for up to 6 months. So folks who typically can get workers' comp will get workers' comp. Some will get up to 39 weeks if they need it. Those who had already exhausted 26 weeks will get another 13 weeks, and all of them could potentially get this $600 a week payout for up to 4 months. So that's for people, non-independent contractors, more traditional employees who complete W-2s. That applied to them. Now, this pandemic unemployment assistance piece applies to independent contractors. And so for the first time, independent contractors who are affected by COVID-19, be it because they can't do their job because of quarantine, or they're affected by COVID, they have COVID, or they're taking care of a family member who has COVID, they are eligible for unemployment benefits and would apply in the same way that I referenced, the same application process. Call your local state unemployment office and get the ball rolling. Independent contractors, in addition to being eligible for unemployment benefits for the first time, will also be eligible to receive the $600 a week payout for 4 months as well. So those opportunities will be available to independent contractors as well. The complication is, guys, this is all very new. Whenever you have a new law, it typically can take years to work out what the verbiage means. And so we're in a situation in which we're not only trying to figure out, like people will be trying to figure out what verbiage means, but people will also be on the fly creating the structure to implement these changes. Because independent contractors haven't been paid in this way before for unemployment benefits, states are having to individually create infrastructure for this on the fly. And so I offer that to say, this is a very trying time for everybody. Every moment and corner to be fraught with challenges and unexpected hiccups. And so what this is going to require of all of us, and particularly those of us who are pursuing unemployment benefits, whether we're in an independent contractor or not, we just got to breathe through it. And know going into the process, particularly if you're an independent contractor, that you will likely encounter some delays in getting not only through the process, but getting your check. That's just the nature of having something so new, where the infrastructure was not built or prepared for that new thing. So I'm gonna encourage you all, as you're going through the process, anybody who's contemplating filing for unemployment, or if you have, breathe it out, because this is going to be, it could be an arduous process. I don't want to discourage anybody from filing a claim. I just want to present a realistic picture of what that process can be like. It's not going to be as efficient as it was prior to the COVID-19 pandemic hitting. That is all I had in the substance of my presentation. I'm more than happy to answer questions. I don't know if that means I need to hop over to the event side, Carmen, if I can get an indication from you, if I should hop
you're
over.
fine. Yeah,
I'm
we
fine?
can see
Okay.
and hear you.
Okay, that's
And
awesome.
so if anybody has any questions, I'll let me undo this. Hi everyone. So if anybody has any questions, regarding your situation or any thoughts, concerns, please share them now. You can put them in the chat box, and we'll get to them as soon as they show up. So we'll wait for that. You did have an additional resources slide. Did you want me to put that up?
I sure did. I forgot about that slide.
I'm here to help.
And well, you are a ram in the bush, Carmen Mays. Nobody's ever told you that before. And there's an additional resources slide, and I can take the links in those and throw them in the chat so folks can access them more directly. And I can do that when I kind of get my brain unscrambled a bit. In addition to waiting for any questions that you all have, I'm curious if anybody out there has already tried to or is in the process of submitting their claim for unemployment benefits. I'd be curious to hear what your experience has been. Because it's so new, I have not heard what people are encountering. So I am very curious as to what folks who may have already started engaging the process. I'd love to, to hear your feedback on that.
So Kayla said that she filed.
Okay.
Yeah. So Kayla, do you want to type more about your experience? I've seen people on Facebook talk about it, and there's a lot of confusion.
Yes.
I haven't heard. She said she hasn't heard anything back, and she doesn't know what she's supposed to do next.
Right. When did she file?
Let's see.
Like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, or?
She said, honestly, she don't know. I should be ashamed for not knowing because my dad has worked for unemployment for 20 plus years, but it's probably about a week ago.
A week ago?
A week ago.
Right. So, yeah. I know that from what I've read and gathered, that response times are delayed as far as applications. So I don't know if she's in a situation in which there's an opportunity for her to be, tracking her activity with regard to trying to find other opportunities. I think we're off the grid as far as what typically would happen. So that's why I'm curious as to hear what people have experienced in this new world.
Does weekly certification start before you find out if you're eligible? I think so.
Well, see, now that I think so. That's why I was asking when she filed, because it could be that while she's yet waiting to hear whether she's qualified or will receive, like whether she should be submitting something weekly. And perhaps it's too much, right, to have expected that to have been, communicated to her when she submitted her application. So I'm going to go back to the tried and true thing that I've said consistently before my computer crashed on me, which is Wednesday. Go back and check, see what the state regs say, what the Department of Labor says about what you should do once you've actually submitted the claim. In typical times, I think the answer would be in the following you're submitting your application, you're submitting that weekly certification. Any other questions, comments,
yes.
observations?
So let's see. I think Tammy says she's in Alabama. Originally, I couldn't get through to get my pen fixed. So that was 2 weeks worth of hangups. Then they had a new phone number for just that, but she still couldn't get through. Finally tried the website again, was successful in fixing her pen last week, filed and submitted my first weekly, and got the alert that I'm in my waiting week. in quotations. We shall see. We shall see if I get money deposited next week and how much. Well, girl, I guess we all on the watch night for all our chicks from Trump, from the state, wherever they coming from. We all looking for.
Well, listen, I'm glad you got your PIN number straightened out. I did see an article in the last few days that said that, I don't know if it was Vox or Axios, but one of those news outlets called the unemployment offices of all, an unemployment office or Department of Labor for all 50 states, and actually only got through to like 2 of the 50. Like, in some instances, like the phone just went dead, or someone answered and then hung up on them, or they were routed to voicemail, never heard back. So unfortunately, a lot of that is going on, in which claimants are trying to reach out to get more information, potential prospective claimants trying to reach out to get more information and can't get through to the departments, which
it's a very Alabama thing to happen.
It's a very Alabama,
it is on
to the
brand.
extent that it's happening everywhere, we're going to do it the most profoundly dysfunctional way that it can be done.
Oh, the Alabamification of America. That's real.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Let's see. LaShawna says, I applied March 29th and made it into the system last week. However, I'm 2 weeks into approved certification, but no payment yet. The site says to submit certification weekly, so I would suggest people submit weekly. Yeah. I do this on Sundays. She never had an issue with the site. And she's like, you can sign in and elect to view your certification, and it will pull up to 5 weeks. But she says hers showing 2 weeks, but in all caps, not paid.
Not paid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've seen some articles too that reference the fact that sometimes the payment isn't the payment is incurring in part because the states are still trying to hear from the feds about how that's supposed to work.
Yeah, because I wasn't sure where the money was supposed to come from. Considering this is essentially like a run on the bank.
Yeah, exactly.
All these people applying at one time, and I was like, well, I didn't know where they was going to get the money from to pay all these people. And then the additional amount, was it additional $600? I don't think people were very clear about where that was supposed to come from.
That's right. That's right.
Bettina would like to know, how is an independent contractor defined?
That is a good question. And the independent contractor, I think, that's a good question. I'll need to confirm the answer for you, but I think it's the same independent contractor definition that the IRS uses, if that helps at all. But let me confirm that if I could.
Good.
Any other questions, comments? If not, Carmen, what I will do is share in this additional resources page, this last slide. I will share those links. I'll hop over to the event side and share those links so folks can access that directly.
Awesome.
Ma'am, thank you for your PowerPoint Navigating Ministries. Thank you for the invite. It was an honor to be a part of this coalition today. A great set of panelists and a great convener.
Thank you.
So thank you again.
Thank you.
Honored by the ask.
Yeah, it's been a great full day. One more session. It is so difficult to stay up when your bed is just right there. But I have managed to do it all day. And I can make no promises of what I look like from the waist down. But
no need.
But I am so thankful for your expertise. Michelle is one of the smartest, most capable people that I know. And I know a lot of people, y'all. And so I'm very happy that she could share with you her passions and her expertise. And definitely feel free to hit her up in the chat. If you have any other questions, just go ahead and ask them and she'll answer them in the chat. But yeah, this is very difficult to navigate because it was an announcement before there was a real action plan, before there was a tactical plan
Right,
of
right, right.
distributing goods and
Yeah,
money. And so the rush to have an announcement and not to really pay attention to the particulars is something we may be all too familiar with around here. But anyway,
absolutely. Very, very, very much a ready, fire, aim kind of
oh
mentality. But
yes, already, yes, that's exactly
unfortunately, the claimants are the ones that have to bear the brunt for that
right, right, right.
lack of preparedness. But stay strong, guys. I know it.
It's
I
a
know it sucks. It's just there's no thank
right.
you. It just sucks. But just take deep breaths. Is it
Francis,
Francis?
yeah, Francis's
The
presentation
her
order.
her presentation lean heavily on that. I certainly intend to, and but yeah, and all these things we've been talking about, centering yourself, meditation, mindfulness, and I think you're going to need a lot of mindfulness and meditation when it comes to navigating this unemployment benefits piece in particular, because nobody knows what's going on.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
just awesome.
Yeah.
You guys take care of yourselves.
All right. Bye, y'all.
All right.
Y'all
Bye
about
bye.
15 more minutes for the last session.